It was a crime that shocked a nation. A mother of 5 children disappeared without trace from her home. Jennifer Dulos was married to a champion water skier and a glamorous real estate agent, Fotis Dulo. And then one day, she vanished, never to be seen again. On this episode, we examine that case with an exclusive interview with Richard Colangelo, one of the lead prosecutors. Welcome to Crime Waves.
Got a phone call from the New Canaan Police Department about 8:30 that Friday night that she went missing, which was Friday, May 24th, 2019. And they told me that they had a report of a missing mother. She was supposed to be at some appointments in New York with her children, and she never showed up. So her nanny reported her missing, and the police went over to the house. They gained access to the house. And when they went into the garage, they saw what looked like a cleanup of a blood-like substance, for lack of a better terminology. They reached out to me and asked for a search warrant to search the house. I asked them to get a hold of the Western District Major Crime Squad. I reached out to Sergeant Ken Ventresca, who runs the unit, and had him deploy to New Canaan to see what we had.
What are your emotions on something like that when you get a call and you hear there's blood in the garage and stuff like that? When it's late at night, what are your thoughts?
That obviously, at that time I was a prosecutor for 20 plus years. Your mind thinks of the worst. Here's a mother of 5 children. You hope for the best. As the investigation was unwinding or starting, they sent me the search warrant. I reviewed that at home. They went in and started processing the crime scene. I get a call about an hour later saying that they found her vehicle, which is a Chevy Suburban, on Lapham Road in New Canaan. She wasn't in it. The vehicle was in reverse up against a pile of leaves or some debris on Lapham Road. They started processing the scene, reached out to Ken Ventresca, told him just to keep me posted. Didn't really hear anything from him until probably the next morning when yes, they found what appeared to be blood-like substance, a real cleanup in the garage, 3-car garage, center bay. There was a Land Rover parked there, and that Land Rover had blood-like substance found on the side of it, on the driver's side and underneath it. They looked at Jennifer's car, didn't start processing yet her Suburban, but they found what appeared to be blood-like substance on the passenger side of her vehicle and underneath it. And what looked like cleanup. So they just started collecting samples. They videotaped the crime scene, and we started to try and investigate who is Jennifer Dulos.
We're going to get right into how you and that team did this extraordinary investigation. I'm sorry to ask you such a flighty question, but as a man with 20 years experience, as a man with daughters and a tremendous care for this, what's your sense when you hear that a woman may have been brutally killed or something bad may have happened? Do you compartmentalize it? How do you work that one?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I learned a long time ago in my job as a prosecutor that I had to compartmentalize it. Work stays at work and doesn't kind of blend or mix with the family. Vicarious trauma is real. I mean, in dealing with that bad that you see day in, day out as a prosecutor, you have to find an outlet.
Welcome to Crime Waves. On this episode, we are examining the case of Jennifer Dulos. She vanished from her house May 24th, 2019, never to be seen again. And our guest is Richard Colangelo, former chief attorney, a lead prosecutor on the Jennifer Dulos case, and now a colleague as a senior lecturer in the investigations program at the University of New Haven. Now, before we get back to the interview, an appeal, please. Crime Waves works on a budget of zero money. We're not one of the big mainstream media companies who pours hundreds of thousands of dollars into their programs and then adjusts the truth depending on which side of the political equation they want to win. The Crime Waves goal is to bring you interviews with the best investigators in the world in a straightforward, no nonsense, no political slant. We've already been shadow banned on Twitter, X, LinkedIn, because in the middle of the COVID epidemic, we ran a 3-part series on how the virus had most probably linked from the Wuhan Research Laboratory complex. So please, we're not asking for money or commercial support in any way. But if you can, like, subscribe, rate, review, or comment. It will help us in a massive way. And now, Richard Colangelo on the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos. Back before we get into the investigation that you do, and it's an extraordinary investigation. It really is a 21st century investigation involving all kinds of technology. But there's another theme that our producer Zania highlighted, and that is that there were many red flags in this case. There were many times in a very painful divorce case that Jennifer Dulos reached out saying, something bad is going to happen to me. Talk us through that as much as you can, please.
Didn't know much about the domestic case initially. It became part of our investigation and determined that there was very acrimonious divorce going on. And in looking at the pleadings, looking at everything that was going on there, the investigators and like you said, I mean, I couldn't have done this without great police work. Yes. And New Canaan and highlighting the state police also were amazing to work with, and they did an amazing job in this investigation. But through our investigation, we found that in March of that year, 2019, Mr. Dulos started being nice to Jennifer in their divorce proceedings. But up until then, it was a bloodbath. I mean, motions on both sides, protective orders filed. Mr. Dulos had supervised visitation with the children and only supervised visitation pursuant to a court order. Honestly, he actually was down in New Canaan and had a supervised visit on May 22nd.
So 2 days before the
disappearance. 2 days before her disappearance, that Wednesday, he came down to New Canaan and had supervised visitation with the children. Was supposed to see them at a facility in New Canaan that ultimately ended up being closed. So he actually went back to the house where Jennifer was staying. That was the first time he was at the house. And talking with the witnesses, the children and the nanny, they indicated that he only stayed in the backyard, didn't go into the house, didn't go into the garage, didn't go into the kitchen. And that was huge for our investigation.
I'm going to return to that situation about what a woman or what a domestic partner does who feels threatened, because there's been a number of law changes here in Connecticut. There's been Jennifer's laws introduced, but we'll return to that after we get through the investigation, because the investigation is extraordinary, because you have a problem. You've got a suspected murder. You've got a suspected homicide, but you have no body. Talk us through that, please.
From day one, our focus was trying to find Jennifer and see, find what happened to her and see where she was. To this day, we still haven't found her. Not a day goes by when I don't think about it. Not a day goes by when I know the state police, I mean, they are still following up on leads to see where she is. I mean, we did, hours upon hours upon hours of searching for her. We used electronic evidence from Mr. Dulos' cell phone once we seized it to determine his paths and where he might have went before they sold one of the houses that he owned in Farmington. We got permission from the bank actually to go through, and we went through ground penetrating radar and state police dogs. At one point in this investigation, the state police has 3 different major crime squads: Eastern, Central, and Western. We had every state police crime squad working it. We had every canine the state police had, plus additional canines from other departments, looking for Jennifer and trying to find, where she was. And, there were breadcrumbs that we looked at and found that we looked at. And, initially, we had some video of her leaving her house on that May 24th date to drop her children off at school. We had some video of her dropping her children off at school and then coming back home.
What time is that?
In the 8 to 8:15. I think she returned home about 8:30.
Okay.
And then
that's the last
time we saw it. Well, that's the last time that we saw Jennifer's vehicle heading to the house. Then we see her vehicle leaving the house at about 10 o'clock. And Jennifer's phone, from her call detail records, because we never recovered her phone, travels from her house to Lapham Road. So we had that data. So now we searched Lapham Road. We searched the path from Lapham Road multiple times. Trying to figure out how Mr. Dulos got to Lapham Road was kind of a big part of our investigation. Once she went missing, the police reached out to him right away on that May 24th. He didn't contact them or come down to New Canaan until the 25th. When he came down the 25th at night, he was met in the lobby of the New Canaan Police Department by state police detectives and a New Canaan detective. And he was there with a lawyer friend of his, not a criminal lawyer. I want to say it was a real estate lawyer, but I'm really not sure. Mr. Dulos was asked when he first walked in the door if he had a cell phone. And he said, yes, I do. Here, had it in his hand. The detective asked him, state police detective said, can I see it? He handed it to him, asked him if there's a password for it, and was given the password. Mr. Dulos then proceeded to tell us he wasn't going to participate or cooperate with any investigation, and they turned around to leave. We told him he wasn't getting his phone back, and we got a search warrant and looked at his phone.
And what did you find?
Well, we were able to determine that the day that Jennifer went missing that night, Mr. Dulos traveled from his house in Farmington to Hartford in the Albany Avenue area. This was a Memorial Day weekend, so the state police went up there on Sunday and kind of surveilled where he was in the area that he looked at. They found some businesses with some video, and most of Hartford is covered by video cameras. They have a fusion center that aggregates all of that data and information. So we put in a request to them for the data. And then Tuesday, once the people opened back up because Monday was Memorial Day, we were able to get more. We get the video. And viewing the video, we see Mr. Dulos in his Ford Raptor stopping at different garbage receptacles, dropping off garbage bags, dropping off what looks like a mat that would cover the floor of Suburban, and which Jennifer had. And in other videos, we see people going up to garbage cans, pulling out what looks like a white pillow with dark stains on it. So we're starting now to look and see what are in those bags. Can we find them? Because it was Memorial Day weekend, the city of Hartford employees were not working. So we were able to recover a lot of, I think 3 or 4 different bags and other materials that we sent to the lab and tested. And the state police forensic lab was amazing to work with in this case. I mean, because of the situation, they started processing things as soon as we got there, got the evidence to them.
Let me just run through the chronology there. Jennifer disappears. Excuse me. The last time we see her car driven into her house is Friday morning at roughly 8:30. Might be a little earlier, but roughly then. We don't have the notes in front of us, but around 8:30. And then we see the car driven away, and that evening you receive a call from the police saying, "We've got suspicious material. We can't find her." But by Monday, you have tracked down in Hartford the estranged husband, going around to 30 different trash bins across the city, putting in garbage bags. And you've recovered those garbage bags, as police officers do, and already sent them to forensics by Tuesday morning.
Probably had sent there by Tuesday afternoon. It wasn't 30. He made multiple stops. We didn't recover in 30 different places, but we were able to recover in multiple places. Once that occurred, we also see him stopping at a catch basin and putting something down that looks like a material into the catch basin. Got the city of Hartford to come out, and we kind of found what that was. I mean, they opened up the storm drain and tried to see what it was. And we ultimately found that he had thrown in a FedEx package a couple of license plates that were from vehicles that he owned that were altered. He turned a 6 into an 8, I believe, with tape, so they would look different. Tried to test everything for DNA. Didn't find his DNA on any of those plates, but they were part of something that was registered to a vehicle that he had owned.
Now, was there anything of Jennifer's DNA or blood on what was in those garbage bags?
Found multiple things. We found a material that was used, like paper towels with the blood on them. We found brooms and mops, that type of thing. We also found a shirt that was bloodied. We found a bra that was bloodied. And we actually also found multiple zip ties with Jennifer's blood on them. And then a couple of those old disposable ponchos, the clear ponchos you would buy from a sporting event, that were saturated in Jennifer's blood. What ultimately turned out to be Jennifer's blood. We compared it to a known sample that we got from her house, from a toothbrush, I believe it was, and compared the DNA that way. So at this point in time, we had, still nobody, didn't know where Jennifer was. We knew that, she was home at that 8:30. We know that her vehicle left. So now we're trying to figure out, how did Mr. Dulos get to New Canaan? What did he do? So we scouring video. We ultimately, just through great investigative work, we were able to find a video from a school bus. And with the school bus cameras, there's one facing the children, and then there's one facing the door when the children walk onto the bus. And, the camera that's facing the door is on when the bus is traveling down the street. So we got the bus. It was on Lapham Road, and first pass, there's nothing on parked on Lapham Road. Second pass, we see what looks like a pickup truck. And we determined that that pickup truck belonged to a foreman that worked with Mr. Dulos. So then we go back to start looking at video from Farmington, and we see that pickup truck leaving Mr. Dulos' residence, or one of the houses that he owned in Farmington, at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and then start scouring video from the trip from on the Parkway or Route 8, find him on Route 8, passing some rest areas, coming down to New Canaan in that morning. Now we have to figure out, and we see that we knew where he parked the vehicle in on Lapham Road. And that's where Jennifer's car was ultimately found that morning, or that night, that she went missing. So now we have to figure out, how did Mr. Dulos get from Lapham Road to her house?
And the distance here is what? 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles?
Honestly, I don't remember, but not that far. So just looking at video between the 2 points, we find an individual riding a bike with a black hoodie and dark pants and a backpack on that morning, heading towards Jennifer's house from the area of Lapham Road. So investigation, we find out that Mr. Dulos had a bike that was similar to it. In one of the bags, we find on duct tape an emblem from the bike that Mr. Dulos had. And when we did search warrants at Mr. Dulos' residences, we did not find that bike. Our investigation determined that his foreman actually tuned the bike up or made it rideable before Jennifer went missing. And, it was a bike that he had since college. I mean, we had people reaching out to us from, across the country. Hey, I have a picture of photos at college with this bike. Here it is. So we had that piece of evidence. One of the things we found, because we had the trip and the location, we knew that Jennifer ended up on Lapham Road. We knew that Mr. Dulos was parked on Lapham Road now. So we try to find his vehicle heading from Lapham Road back up to Farmington. And we were able to find it. There's about a 40-minute gap where we don't know what he was doing or where he was. And
let me just review here, because this is, we're right in the minutia of this investigation. I want to make sure that our listeners are following clearly here. Friday, May 24th, Jennifer Dulos returns from dropping off her children at school. She's back in her garage around 8:30. At roughly 10 o'clock, there's cameras from her neighbor's security camera that sees that same car being driven off the property. So the question is, how does the husband, who's later found dropping off garbage bags full of blood-stained clothes, bras, a mat around various garbage dumps in Hartford, about 100 miles away, how does he come from his house, which is about 70 miles away, to there, gets himself into the house, and then gets the body out of the house into something? And again, we still haven't found, 5 years later, we still haven't found the body. So that's where we are now. You've done extraordinary work. You and the police investigators have found camera from school buses, cameras from rest areas up and down the Connecticut Parkway system, showing this tracking of this thing. So the question is now, how does he get the body out of the house?
So we see Jennifer's car leaving her residence in New Canaan at about 10:20 in that range. We know that her phone travels from the residence to Lapham Road. And then we don't pick up Mr. Dulos on the Parkway. There's a rest area by exit 36 where we would have gotten on. We pick him up. It's about 40 minutes after we lose sight of Jennifer's phone, because it does lose signal at some point in time. So our investigative theory, in working with the investigators, the best we could figure out is that he brought her there in the back of the Suburban. And because we found, her blood in the back of the Suburban, so he had to take some time unloading the Suburban into the pickup truck. When you look at the video of the pickup truck traveling up the Merritt Parkway, you see garbage bags in the rear of the black garbage bags in the back of the pickup truck. You also see what looks like a bicycle in the back of the pickup truck. So, we follow that vehicle up. It's back to Farmington, and had the state police do time and distance. If it's traveling 60 miles an hour from this camera to this camera, are we on track with the way his path getting up to the Merritt Parkway? And he was. I mean, he was time and distance, didn't account for any stops. And that's one of the things we were worried about. Where could Jennifer have gone? So then we got him pulling into his house in Farmington, one of the houses that he owned in Farmington that afternoon. And then we have him going back to his other house in Farmington and coming back. And there's video of him traveling back and forth. And his girlfriend at the time, Michelle Troconis, traveling back and forth. We found out who owned the pickup truck. We spoke to him. And we got a search warrant for that pickup truck once we found that it was part of the investigation. And when we went to serve the search warrant on the individual that owned the pickup truck, he said, hey, Fotis was trying to get me to change the seats out. He told me that he was worried when Jennifer went missing, that he had hugged her that night, the day that he brought the kids, brought the kids down on the 20th. So he was worried about her DNA being in the pickup truck. So he wanted me to change the seats out of this old Toyota Tacoma pickup truck that was his work truck. So he did, but he said to the police when we served the search warrant, hey, I still got the seats. Do you want them? So we took them, and they were, so it was very helpful to the investigation.
What did you find on this?
Jennifer's blood. Her DNA was present on one of the seats that came out of the truck. Before we actually found the pickup truck, we had arrested Mr. Dulos and Mr. Troconis for dumping the evidence in Hartford. That was the first arrest.
Again, let me just review this. You've got no body, but you've got garbage bags being dumped by the estranged husband who's going through a painful divorce with this woman across a city. You've tracked down through cameras and mobile phone investigations his route to and from the house that morning and away from it. What's his story? How does he explain what he's doing and what's going on?
Never told us anything, never spoke to us. I had an attorney that was representing him right away, which is obviously his right. We made the first arrest, and it was becoming a major, national story. Dateline 48 hours. Everybody wanted to talk about the case, and they were, doing their parallel investigations. Mr. Dulos did talk to, I believe it was Dateline Channel 7, provided an interview for them and said that he was cooperating with the investigation, that he turned over his phone willingly. I was really happy about that in case they filed a motion to suppress in the case, challenging our searching or seizing of his cell phone, because he was helping us with our investigation, because he had nothing to do with Jennifer going missing. That was basically all we heard from him. Once we determined that the pickup truck was involved and we got it and investigated it, examined the pickup truck, it was very clear to the investigators that that truck had been severely or deeply cleaned. So now we're investigating again what's going on, what happened to the pickup truck. Looking at the digital evidence from cell phones, we find that, the truck was cleaned at Russell Speeders up in the Avon area. We track or find a video of Mr. Dulos taking out cash from an ATM to pay for the detailing. He leaves. We have video of him traveling there with Mr. Troconis following him to drop him off. He provides or leaves Mr. Troconis's phone number on the, hey, call this number when the car is done. So we get that evidence. After we found that information, we arrested Mr. Dulos and Mr. Troconis a second time. For the first time, we arrested him for hindering prosecution, tampering with evidence. Second time, we arrested him for tampering with evidence for detailing the car. And then we just continued our investigation to try and find out where Jennifer was.
Now, at one point in that 6-month period, the defense lawyer comes forward with an idea that this is actually a living Gone Girl plot. For those of you guys who don't know, there was a famous book and a movie about a woman who deliberately disappears herself to place blame on her husband. Tell us your thoughts, what you responded on that theory.
I kind of laughed, to be honest with you. I know defense attorneys have to do what they have to do, and that was their arguments or, his role in what had to happen. And he hired a really good defense attorney. Norm Pattis was his lawyer. And I knew that Mr. Pattis was going to give me a run for my money. So I wanted to make sure that the investigation was as complete as we possibly could. So we continued to investigate, and we still did not find Jennifer or any whereabouts of Jennifer through our investigation. I had a meeting with the medical examiner, and in talking with Dr. Gill, presented him with the blood spatter investigation so we could determine there were two separate sources of blood spatter in the garage. And then we ultimately talked to him. My question to him was, look, if somebody was injured as severely as we think they were in this garage with this much blood loss, could they have survived without immediate medical attention? And his answer was no. So with that information, I felt confident, even though we didn't have a body, that we had enough to arrest Mr. Dulos for her murder. Ultimately, that's what we did. Before we did that, we investigated Mr. Dulos' finances and determined that he wasn't as solvent as he said that he was. So we arrested Mr. Dulos for the homicide, arrested Mr. Konis for conspiracy to commit that homicide, and also Kent Maweny, who was a friend of Mr. Dulos, for that conspiracy to commit the homicide. After that arrest, Mr. Dulos bonded out around the middle of January 2020, beginning of January 2020. After Mr. Dulos bonded out, it came to my attention that the collateral that he used to post his bond wasn't what he said. He lied about the equity he had in his properties. So we called him in, talked to the judge who approved his bond, said, "Hey, look, I'd like to revisit his conditions of release because he's not compliant with the statute, nor is the bail bonds person compliant." So we called him into court, and that day that he was supposed to show up, he didn't. So I reached out to the state police and had them call the Farmington police to do a welfare check. He was found in his garage in a vehicle with a hose going from the tailpipe into the car. He was unconscious when we found him. They could not find a pulse, but he was still warm. So in talking with the Farmington police, they were going to send him to the hospital. And I get a call back from the Farmington police and was told that they found a faint pulse. So they rushed him to the hospital. He ultimately went from the hospital he went to, Lifestar, to a hospital in New York, the bariatric chamber, and ultimately succumbed to those self-inflicted injuries. So that is where the case stood. Mr. Konis and Mr. Maweny's cases were pending still. Mr. Dulos' case was dropped because obviously he was no longer with us. Mr. Konis was tried this past year, and the Stanford prosecutors that I worked with did a wonderful job presenting that evidence in a kind of concise, clear fashion, because it was a very detailed and voluminous investigation. And she was convicted, ultimately sentenced to 14 plus years in prison for her role. And now Mr. Maweny's case is now pending. Still haven't found Jennifer. Her children deserve to know where she is, what happened to her. And that is something that I know they're still working on or trying to find out.
Let's talk about the larger issue, because I know this has been a national case. I know when Xenia was doing the research on this, what really struck her, and Xenia, I'm going to ask you to come on in a second here. Jennifer was reaching out for help for months beforehand because she feared for her life. She feared for her safety. And there's now been a law passed called Jennifer's Law here in Connecticut, giving more help to women in those situations. Can you talk to us about that? Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the situation thanks?
Jennifer's Law was named for actually two Jennifers in Connecticut. It is there to provide additional help and support to victims of domestic violence, give them some support through the family court system. In looking at her case, the judges that were involved in her case did everything that they could within the system, provide her the protections that the civil court afforded the participants in that civil court case. There was never anything that we could do, or Jennifer never made any complaints to a police department in any area of domestic violence that didn't go investigate it. So the system didn't have anything to go on there. I mean, this is a situation where something inside Mr. Dulos snapped. Obviously, it was something that he had planned for a period of time. Fortunately, we still haven't found Jennifer.
Xenia, do you have questions?
One of the questions that I was thinking early on when I first started looking into like the chronology of it was, when she first filed for that protective order, I think about a month and a half, 2 months before she first disappeared, she was filing it because of some potentially violent behavior or aggressive behavior from her husband. And I was wondering how he filed in opposition of her, how that influenced the investigation when you first started.
Honestly, we didn't know. I knew very little about the divorce proceeding and the situation that was going on with their divorce at the beginning of the investigation. And as we were probably for the first week, we didn't really figure any of that out, to be honest with you, where she filed. I mean, so in I worked in the criminal court system, right? And I didn't have really any connection to or interdealings with the family court and the civil court system where the divorce case would be. So we really didn't know much about that. When she initially filed protective order, well, the restraining order would have been done civilly. So that would have been before that civil court. I don't remember if she ever filed any restraining orders criminally. It didn't in our jurisdiction, in the area that I covered.
Emily, please take her away.
Do you think it's possible to get justice in a homicide case where there is no body?
Yes. Why do I say yes? This is a case that kind of is that example. There wasn't many cases that I could find when I did research in Connecticut of charging homicides without bodies. It was done a couple of times before. I just felt that we had so much circumstantial evidence in this case that she had 5 children, was unlike her character, everything that I found out about her from her family and her friends, to just forget and leave her children, that it was preposterous. That's what she did. So there had to be something happened to her. Looking at the crime scene, I had no choice but to do what I ultimately did.
Rich, thank you very much for taking the time this morning to talk about this case, but thank you as well for your investigation on this one. I know that you're talking in a very matter-of-fact fashion about a very difficult, very emotional investigation. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to meet you all. It's all up here. I didn't have any notes. I worked on intimately with the state police and New Canaan police. Every search warrant came through me. Every part of the investigation came through me. So it's one of those that I'll probably never forget.
Do you still think about it?
Always wonder where she is. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Declan. Thank you so much for your attention to this episode of Crime Waves about the disappearance and presumed murder of Jennifer Dulos. Our fantastic student producers on this episode was Zanaya Howell and Angie Paulus. Now, you'll note that we spoke about the alleged perpetrator, Fotis Dulos, as little as possible. And that's the Crime Waves way. We focus on the investigators and victims of the crime as much as we possibly can. We do not like much of the true crime podcast field, which often treats human tragedy and the despair around it as some kind of pornographic treat. That's not what we do at Crime Waves. So if you like this episode and if you like how we handle these issues, then please rate, review, subscribe, follow us on whatever podcast platform you use. It's a massive help for the entire team here, most of whom are my students. So thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode of Crime Waves.